Louisiana is known as a sportsman's paradise, but due to its location, it has also seen more than its share of natural disasters from hurricanes. Join us at the table to hear about a grassroots effort for sportsmen and sportswomen to join forces to help their neighbors when disaster strikes.
Welcome to the Steel Magnolias podcast. We are two sisters here to have uplifting conversations about life in the South.
The South is full of beautiful diversity in landscape, people groups, and culture, and we want to showcase each part. We've got plenty of room at our table, so pull up your chair.
Welcome back to the table. I'm Laura Beth.
I'm Lainey.
And when people ask us, how do you come up with so many episodes on a weekly basis, I think of episodes like we're going to talk about today, meaning if you're just living in the South, sometimes stuff just comes up that wasn't on your radar at all, that you didn't have knowledge about beforehand. Such is the case with the United Cajun Navy. News to us, even though this group was actually founded back in 2005, is what I had read, based on the horror that was Hurricane Katrina. So it didn't have this name at that time. It was literally just, like I said, a grassroots effort of people going, hey, we have boats. Let's go try to save people that are stranded and stuck. And so that was the main problem with Katrina was, well, there were so many problems. But Katrina brought about not just a need for supplies, but a way to get supplies to people.
And get people safe.
AKA boats.
That were on roofs. And
yes.
It really is horrific.
Yeah, so boats were of great need. And like you said, since it was a sportsman's paradise, there were a lot of people that hunted and fished and had boats. So.
And you know what? I really do think, as much as we never want to walk through natural disaster, you get to see the good of humanity when things happen.
Yes.
And that people really do want to help their neighbor.
Yeah.
And it unifies like no other, too.
It really does. I think that's why it's so bonding, whether you are trying to get a team at work to bond or a Bible study or whatever. If
to do something together.
You'll go serve and do something together, that's where the bonding happens.
It so does. So it crosses all barriers of race and financial status and all of it.
Yeah.
Anyway. So it's officially now a 501c3.
Okay, yeah.
But it started just as people wanting to help people.
Yeah. And if you've ever been put with the task of being an organizer of volunteers, it is sort of a maddening process because people, like you said, in general want to just be helpful, but a lot of times don't know what to do or how to be helpful.
Yeah, sometimes just tell me where to go.
Just tell me what to do. Yes.
What's the address and what do I take with me? Because I don't know where to go.
So somebody's got to organize.
Yeah, and it seems to me in doing research on this topic that now there's some different pockets of this United Cajun Navy. There's a ground force effort and some different ones. But I just love that, people take the lead, get some organization happening. And now, from what I read, they've deployed to 19 states so far.
Wow.
Served in 28 disasters so far.
Wow.
So no signs of stopping. They're willing to go anywhere. And that's what I think is so cool.
So they're based out of Baton Rouge, this particular group. But we actually heard about them not through a natural disaster that had happened.
It was a search and rescue effort here in our city.
What is happening to some of the stuff that they're doing. So Riley Strain was a 22-year-old student from the University of Missouri who was visiting with some other friends here in the Nashville area. Or in Nashville. They were in downtown Nashville, and he went missing back in March. And, he'd been seen on some video cameras as being out and about at some bars downtown.
Stumbling, and it's a terrible story, actually.
So, as part of their search, we do have the Cumberland River that flows right through our downtown. So unfortunately, the search expanded to the river, and this United Cajun Navy showed up to help. And I was watching the news and I was like, what is the United Cajun Navy?
And
like,
that's awesome.
That sounds really fun and cool. And yeah.
Hence the subject being added to our list of content.
Yeah. So I saw on our local TV here, their director of operations, David Flagg. He appeared right on our public square, like a news conference with the police department.
And the parents.
They work with the police. They're not just renegades going rogue and doing their own thing. They do partner with government agencies.
And their search and rescue group is trained in search and rescue. They're not just like, oh, we'll get out there and see what we see.
Right. So they work hand in hand with the local group that is, government police force. And they just organized volunteer groups to help expand the search. So here come the United Cajun Navy boats. It was the coolest thing.
They have drones. They have dogs. Like, the video I saw in the Cumberland River, there was a dog on the boat as well.
It kind of makes me just smile because when I think of people putting money into boats and basically big toys, adult big toys, sometimes I'm like, oh, shouldn't they use money on something else? Well, if you're going to use it for this kind of thing, I'm so proud of you.
Good.
Yeah.
I know.
Not every fisherman out there is doing this, but there's some men and women out there that are very free with letting this, their big toys being used for this kind of thing. So in that regard, it's very selfless. And they were, again, a part of this search in Nashville. And so that's how we heard about them. They even went on, actually rolled right off of this search onto another local search. It was like the weirdest thing to have two searches and need it. But they're open to going where they need to go. In fact, their little statement on their website even says they're focused on helping make the world around them a better place. So that really does include lots of different
needs. Lot of different avenues.
Good people.
They do clearly hurricane deployment and tornado deployment. I know they were up in Kentucky after that horrible tornado a few years ago.
Yes, Mayfield.
So they have volunteers who are trained to do all different sorts of things.
Yeah, and what I thought was cool is that they keep an eye on the weather, the region, to actually go in before the storm even hits.
I think
if they can.
So, I thought that was fascinating too. They, keep up with the National Weather Service, and once there's a warning, they're in go mode.
Yeah, so they're there. They're set up. They get staging ready to go to operate from, and they're, again, like you said, they're in communication with their radios and
using their ham radios and
yeah. They've got volunteers ready to dispatch, and Facebook is actually a big component of the way that they hear about requests and needs. And when they're keeping an eye on an area, they're looking for people that need help and are in distress or are posting about their own, personal needs or their neighbors' needs, etc. And that's how they're kind of deployed, if you will.
Right.
So I think even that, again, a good use of social media. It's not all bad.
Negative.
Yeah.
Well, are you familiar with on ABC News, they'll sometimes do these America Strong.
Oh, like at the very end of the program or something?
Yeah, and it's like an uplifting story or something that someone's doing
They'll spend 55 minutes on something
horror.
Dreadful, and then the last 5 minutes is
We'll give you a negative, a dog being saved.
Yes.
Well, they did doing my research, I came across an America Strong where they...
Oh, cool.
It was after Hurricane Ida.
Okay.
In Louisiana, and the Cajun Navy had really stepped in to do a lot of work there.
Okay.
And they were mentioning that Facebook, like, people could literally just put in, like, here's my address, this is what I need.
Wow.
Like, if it was food or if it was, like, debris.
Wow.
I need trees cut or whatever. And that's how people would know where to go. They would literally come.
They just show up to the address, start cleaning up, bringing supplies. Wow.
That's a beautiful thing.
It is. Again, boys with their toys and girls with their toys. They like to do tree cleanup, cutting up limbs with the chainsaws. I mean, we know several guys that just have fun with that.
Had a friend years ago. I've had many needs and don't feel like I need to call on him all the time. But he was like, any excuse I have to use my chainsaw is a joyful moment for me.
Some people, that's just
really
fun.
And I do think some people are wired like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a whole like tree division of volunteers. They have, if you want to serve and help, they've probably got a space for you. And again, and then I've heard that they will return to affected areas to help look for ways to provide ongoing assistance, clothing, food, even like children's supplies. They do a lot of this supply collecting. This is so smart. They put together Amazon lists.
Oh, brilliant.
A lot of people don't know where to give or what to buy. They're just like,
yeah, but if I can go on Amazon and buy diapers and tell me where to, that's helpful.
I looked through some of the list and I was like, well, I would have never thought of that. Like big clear totes.
Okay.
Was one of the main like top items that they need a lot of. Well, yeah, to deliver stuff and to store, and I mean just stuff you wouldn't think about, but is very needed. And so I thought that was a good way to use technology. They have different government agencies, like I said, that they partner with. But what's what's interesting when you think about a natural disaster, the very agencies that are there to help the community oftentimes need help themselves. Like they got flooded, their roof's gone, their storage facility is
so they could help if it was a different kind of disaster. But if it's
you need outside help so much, even if you're fully equipped and even if you're a wealthy area, it has no bounds.
We don't know when FEMA necessarily is going to get everything in order. So I also saw that they serve a lot of poverty-stricken areas that don't even have to have a natural disaster. Every day is a natural disaster. Including West Virginia and the very town our church is doing a mission trip next month, which is McDowell. And so, I watched a little clip on what they're doing there. And again, some of the housing that I saw in that area, and was, really in need of help. And it wasn't because of natural disaster. It was because of poverty. And there's also in those areas often a high drug usage problem because they don't have hope. And so I love
medicating pain.
I know.
And suffering. Yeah, that's real. That's really real.
So
they call anyone in need a neighbor. They say, neighbors, we mean you.
Oh,
I thought that was sweet. That said, to us, anyone is a neighbor. Anyone in need is a neighbor. We have traveled literally across the entire United States to help neighbors in need. It's like, well, that'll preach.
That will preach. Well, I am so inspired by this group. I think if you are looking for a place to sow some time or resources, check this group out. And if the Lord puts that on your heart, sow in. Yeah.
Right now they are in Oklahoma helping some very distraught areas from the tornado victims. Those are just horrendous circumstances. They are in Texas helping flood victims across that state.
Houston just got hit, literally just got hit again.
Yeah, they're spending time primarily in Oklahoma and Texas right now. But again, it sounds like they're ready to deploy and return. And I'm sure there are many, many, many needs. So if any of this is speaking to you, check out the links in our show notes and do your own digging. We haven't we haven't like partnered with this group or anything like that before. We were just intrigued by their willingness to be I guess they considered us neighbors because they
came to Nashville,
to our town to help. And so we were just inspired by what they're out there doing. And anyway, so do your own digging, do your own due diligence.
Was interesting because, of course, that story had captivated me with that young man being missing and then seeing on the news the Cajun Navy. And I'm like, Cajun Navy? I was just in Baton Rouge. What's the Cajun Navy?
Yeah.
So, it's funny how that all came about. And I'm like, darn, I was just there. I wish I could have interviewed somebody. I didn't know.
That's true. And now we'll probably hear about this over and over and over again because now we've heard of them.
Right.
That's how it happens.
That's how everything happens. If you learn a new word, you hear it 3 times the next
I'm like,
week.
oh, everybody's been using that word. I just didn't know it. Yeah. So again, if you're one that likes to shop, pick up something on the Amazon list. If you're one that wants to serve, go ahead and get signed up to be a volunteer. There are needs, and West Virginia, being in the South, is certainly an area that has ongoing needs. So I think that's all we wanted to tell y'all. It's a little shorter episode today, but we just wanted to make sure and cover this incredible group. And congrats to, I believe you say his last name, Terrell, Todd Terrell, for founding this and putting some legs to action.
Yep. Well, I just speak peace over all the listeners, but even peace over all the people that the Cajun Navy will serve in the weeks to come, too.
That's good. That's good. Have a great week, y'all, and peace be with you.
You've just listened to an episode of the Steel Magnolias podcast, an independent show funded solely on support from listeners like you and a few advertisers from time to time. For reminders of what we just said and links to what we just mentioned, take a look at the description of this episode. They are right there. Are you enjoying the show? We hope you'll text a friend or a loved one to tell them about the podcast. Make sure they know how to get to a podcast first. And we invite you to join our mailing list to be the first to know about episodes, giveaways, events, and even those gatherings. Sign up at steelmagnoliaspodcast.com.